Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show, and welcome to everybody on TikTok. And today we are going to be discussing becoming a student of life and the importance of continually learning. I think is what the main objective I think for us to cover today, and how it has quite a profound effect on anybody who's on their own journey to success and things. And Jim, I'm sure you'll share a lot of insights on your own journey today, and myself also as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but yeah, I think it's we say this quite a lot, and we mentioned it at the weekend about learn it all rather than know it all. I think it's quite a good point and a good thing to live by, because
I don't think I genuinely, and I know most people will possibly agree with me anyway.
uh-huh.
This is see how you've just lined up everybody's agreement before I've started. But it's true though. When you leave school, at your young age, the last
Yeah.
thing you want to do is pick up another book or learn from anybody else, unless you're going into a profession, unless it's accountancy or being a solicitor or being on a further education for university to be a scientist, a
Mhm.
pharmacist, or doctor, or nurse, or whatever it is. The
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is actually become a student again. You just want to start work, and you want to start earning money, and you want to start doing what you want to do and having your holidays and all the rest of it. And the prospect, the horror when you think about it, of having to go back and read a book or learn or attend an event to further educate yourself even more, and the prospect of that is quite daunting, especially the fact that you spent the first
Definitely.
16 years in school, and possibly, I'll take a good guess and say, it maybe wasn't the greatest time of your life at that point in time. However, when you get to about 57-year-old, you realise maybe it
Thought you were
was
going to
actually a really good time. You tend to forget all the horrible things that happened to you. Um, and you just remember all the good things, and you think it was a really easy life when you were at high school and you were at primary as well, and you kind of think, God, I wish I'd. And then a lot of people think, I wish I'd stuck in more. I wish I'd
Mhm.
learned more. But this is maybe why this is what we talk about: becoming a better student of life
Yeah.
overall, and understanding what you need to do. And it takes a big person, and to admit to themselves that they need to learn more. They need
Yeah.
to further education in order to get better, because we all think we've arrived, especially when you've got a job for the first time. You think you're minted. You think you've actually got a fortune, and and
Yeah.
and the world is now your oyster, and you can do anything you want to do. And then the reality kicks in later on, 6 months later, when you realise you have to get finance to get a car, and you have to get finance to get a house, and you maybe can't afford your deposit for your house, and if you want to go on really good holidays, you have to pay it on a credit card because you can't afford to pay it all at once. I was just
Mhm.
talking to you. That's me paid off Necker Island,
Yeah.
just like that. But it's true. But then that's the thing. This is what becoming a student of life is all about. This is
Yeah.
why you need to become a student of life. If you want more out of life, you have to become a student of life. If you want
Yeah.
more money, or you want more wealth, or you want more whatever it is, you want better relationships, you want a bigger circle of friends, or better, better friends. I hate to say it. Sometimes people need better friends around about them. If you want a different peer group, you have to become a student of life if you want to learn from other people. And this is the things that you've got to admit to yourself, and you've got to do. I mean, some of these topics that we've said to you, it's like, yeah, I tell you what, it's going to be a real difficulty for a lot of people to actually adhere to them and to
Yeah.
actually accept them, especially
Yeah.
about
You're
asking for
absolutely
help.
right.
I mean, how
Yeah.
many times
The
do you?
asking
It's
for
like,
help thing. Yeah.
I dread rolling down the window and asking people for directions. It's like, I know where I'm going. It's round here, I think, but I don't tell Elaine that. And then when we get there, it's like, I told you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right as well, and I think it's just to clarify as well, because re-educating or going back to school and things might really strike up maybe or trigger things with people, and maybe like people have got the fear of going through a whole education system. I think, and unless you're really retraining to do something, that's not what we're talking about today. It's more about, like you say, a student of life, and learning from other people and asking questions, and being able to turn around and say, look, I need help to do this, and asking for help and knowing the right people to go to do that. And that's more the topic of a student of life, as opposed to entering back into an education system and achieving a grade and things like that.
Can I give people a bit of advice here?
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you're not really competing against other people in life. This is where we're all taught to do that. This is,
Yeah.
your three-legged race and your egg and spoon race from your primary days, and it's the first over the line and everything like that. And I'm beginning to wane into the fact that, everybody thinks there should be a winner, a first, second, and third. And yeah, that's great. But when you look at the Olympic athletes, you're not actually competing against other Olympic athletes. You're competing against yourself. This is quite interesting what Chris Rock said to Kevin Hart. And
Mm-hmm.
this applies to everybody right across the board. And the reason Kevin Hart so successful he is today as a comedian and an entrepreneur and a global media company for what he's built, what Kevin Hart has built in so little time, is what Chris Rock has said to him all that way back when he was in the comedy clubs with all these other people round about him. All these other people round about him at the same time, Dave Chappelle, and people like that, they were all round about him. And Chris, Chris Rock was the best of everything. He was the epitome. He was the benchmark about how he should be. Jimmy Carr talks about it as well, as Chris Rock was the benchmark for comedians. But there is somebody in your life, more than likely, will be the benchmark for what you do. And Kevin Hart took Chris Rock, Mr. Rock, do you think I can get a bit of advice from you? And Chris said something so profound, and emanates, through everybody today. And this is what he said. Chris said to Kevin, "You're competing against these other comedians. Remember that. You're competing against these other comedians at this point in time. But you've got to remember, they're not your peers. You're better than all of them. But you need to get out of their circle and develop your own voice." See how that applies?
Yeah.
What do you think I'm doing? Why do you think I'm such a loner? Really? When you think
That's
about it, why do you think
true.
I'm such a loner? That's effectively what I've done over the last 30 years. I've never been in anybody else's circle as such. I've never been attached to anybody's group or anything like that. I've just developed my own voice out
On
of
your
what
own
I've
thing,
done.
yeah.
And I think that advice is completely applicable to anybody from any industry, from any career, from any profession, from whatever it is you're doing in life. It is true. You can apply that to everybody. You're not competing. At this point, everybody else is competing against everybody else. That's how they see it. I'm not. I'm competing with myself, by the way. But most people see they're competing against other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they're not your peers. So why on earth are you competing against them? They're not the people you should be looking up to. They're not the people you should be trying to be. You should be trying to be the best version of you. You are better than all of these other people. But because you're competing against them, you're getting down to their level.
Yeah.
You're doing exactly the same thing as they're doing to compete against them. That's what you're doing. When in actual fact, you're way beyond that. More than likely with the skills and expertise and what your knowledge and wealth of information that you have, or you're beginning to learn on your journey. You're way ahead of that. You're better than that.
Do you know, that's quite interesting. And we are in a very like achievement orientated society. Do you know, and it has a knock on effect, and everybody thinks that they need to be doing what everybody else is doing in order to get that kind of status. And do you know how it's like? I mean, social media and the things is really like for glamorizing like wealth and fame and power and things, and that's why when people strive to do that rather than think, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go this way, as opposed to following suit.
Here's a great one. Somebody says, "I want to be another Lady Gaga." You're too late. Lady Gaga's already
Already
there.
done. Yeah.
It's already done. Nobody wants another Lady Gaga. Nobody wants another Pink. Nobody wants another Kevin Hart. No one wants another, Brad Pitt. No one wants these people because they're there already.
Yeah.
You can't forge a career out of that being that other person because they've got that audience already. Why would that audience come to you if you're just trying to mimic them?
Yeah, I would totally agree.
That's why you have to develop. That's why you have to get out of their circle that you're in just now and develop your own voice. Because then you're not that person. You're not. We talk about this all the time, don't we? And the fact that you be you.
Yeah,
Don't try to be me.
yeah,
Because I've already attracted all the people that like me. And you're there to attract people that like you for
yeah,
you, not me. And
yeah.
that's how you become a student of life. That's how you understand where you should be and how you should fit in. And I'll use the word fit in loosely because there's a space in a jigsaw somewhere, wherever that jigsaw is, and you're the person that fills that space. You just
You're
have to work
absolutely
out
right about,
where
yeah.
you fit.
For carve yourself in with your own niche. And it's like, and that was a good example you used. Like you and I obviously work in the same industries, do the same things, but we're still very different. And you need to appeal in your own right to people as opposed to trying to
Yeah.
mimic. Although there's a lot to learn from the people around you and the people that work in the same industry and things as you, or whatever the situation may be. There's a lot to learn for them, but then you could apply it in your own way to fit your own kind of your own persona as such.
I've seen people try to do what I do from other agencies. And they're no longer doing it, and they're no longer in the business and as an estate agent because basically what was happening was people were coming on and saying, "You just try to be like Jim,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's like,
Like you
there
say,
you
they're trying
go.
to replicate something that's
Yeah,
already been
it's
done.
like
Yeah,
you can't be like Jim. You know, thank God for that, because thank God there's only one Jim. It's like
one of you is enough, Jim.
I'm not really sure if the world could cope with two Jims, to be honest. I'm not even sure if I could cope with two Jims. But now and again, I've got it in my head. There's two Jims, and I fight it out between the both of them. That's the key here. So, to become a better student of life, you have to become a great storyteller. But you
Mm-hmm.
also have to make sure that you're a good observer. You listen a lot to people, and you learn a lot from people far more successful than you. So it's not about the current people you're sitting with just now, which is not your peer group really. It's the people that you want to be with. It's
Mm-hmm.
the people you want to be around. It's the people that will elevate you higher. Quite instantly, Stephen Bartlett talked about this morning with Rebel Wilson.
Yeah.
Rebel Wilson, our podcast. Well, Rebel Wilson was talking about her insecurity and all the rest of it, and what's happened and how she grew up. And he said, remember we talked about pulled by your dreams and pushed by your circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they talk about the same thing, and they talk about dragged. So dragged there. So in other words, are you still dragged there? And Rebel Wilson and Stephen actually said, yeah, I still feel dragged by the expectation on me to excel
Mm-hmm.
in what I do. So even though I don't want to do it, I still feel I have to do it because I feel less of a person because I've not done it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's dragged. That's not pulled.
That's not
That's
pushed.
not that's not that's dragged into your circumstances. You've got no choice but to succeed because of the way you've grown up or the way people have treated you. You feel compelled to do it. Like, people that get bullied at school. Oh, I got bullied at school. It's like, okay, so I'm going to succeed and I'm going to show all these people. That's dragged.
Mm-hmm.
That's not your dreams. That's
Yeah.
not dreams. That's I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
That's maybe not the right energy to have. So becoming a student of life actually helps you do that a lot. Um, but the one that we want to talk about the most is probably humility.
Yeah.
And I go, humility. You got to have a lot of humility.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most important things. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I think, but just as you were saying there about people's achievements and things as well, just to finish off, obviously, there's so much to learn from the people around you that are successful and things as well. But do you know when they leave maybe with little breadcrumbs of knowledge and things, it's important to be to pay attention to what they are and how they could benefit you, or whether
Mhm.
you need to pick that up or not. Do you know there's sometimes you could pick up and learn the wrong things from people. So it's you need to really pay attention and not just try and pick up things for the sake of it. But yeah, humility, you're definitely right, Jim. And sometimes it's confused with maybe being weak. Sometimes, weak and submissive, people think that, and society obviously has their views on that and how that could have an effect on people when their reaction to you, especially when you're demonstrating or maybe cultivating that virtue of humility. But it can be a real catalyst for your own personal growth, especially when you're wanting to be a person who learns and absorbs things and become that student of life.
Yeah, definitely. Humility is a difficult one for a difficult pill for people to swallow.
I'm just going to say for a lot of people it will be, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Me included. Years and years ago,
Yeah.
it's because I think it's because you, for me personally, it's the downtrodden at school. It's the told that you're no good enough. It's the underachievement. It's wanting to please other. It's being a people pleaser, wanting to please other people. And humility is not a difficult thing to understand, because then humility leaves you vulnerable to that peer group that you're in. It can take advantage of you for that reason. So you become introvert as a natural result of that. I mean, I'm quite an introvert. I mean, we're doing this now, but everybody's no way. I see on video all the time, and you're doing walking around shows and doing events and all the rest of it. But I am a very extreme introvert. In terms of what I do, I know I have to do certain things and push myself in my comfort zone. It is comfortable now, in order to make sure fulfill my dreams and the goals that I have. That's why I do it, and that's why I use it. So humility is the pill that you've got to swallow in order to become that student of life, and the acceptance of you don't know it all. There's a classic example. You don't know it, because there's a lot of people out there that think they know it all, and I'll tell you what, I don't know it all. But you can see the people that are actually quite will understand what humility is, and it's the people that are quite happy just to more or less make a joke of themselves sometimes, because they don't see any weakness in doing that, but they become endearing to other people as a natural result of it. But they're not doing it for that reason. It's just them. They've got humility about them. They've become better, and they're actually quite a student, and they're not afraid to ask people for how they did things and what their advice was. And you see, I see it quite a lot in me, and people are actually quite surprised when I go to them and ask them, how did you do that, and how did you do this, and I'll go to a course or maybe a talk that they're doing, and they're like, why are you here? You don't really need this information from me. And it's that thing about, I've not learned everything in life. It will be a journey. It'll never be a destination. I'm always there, and I'm always a student now of life because of that very reason. So humility is something you've got to learn to adapt to and to understand, and to actually realize having humility is a strength. It's not a weakness. And the people that don't have humility and are actually, I know everything in life, that is actually an extreme weakness in people.
Yeah. And you're right as well, Jim, and you are very open to that. Like, maybe people look at you and think, why are you here? You don't need to be here. But you're open to the opportunity where there is an opportunity to learn something, and everything, and anybody. And that's where humility comes in, because people might think, well, what is humility? Why do I need it? But it's really having that acceptance that you're like a worthy enough human being, but who is no, like, you're no better or worse than anybody else. Do you know, everybody's kind of equal, and we've all got something to learn from each other. And that's what humility is really all about.
That comes back to the if, isn't it? If you can, if you can still remain you can still have the common touch, with people, and even though never look at yourself as better than other people, just as a part of maybe the knowledge that you have, or the power that you wield, or the influence you have, or the wealth that you have. And actually, and if you start to look down on other people as a result of that, it's like, I think that's the wrong way. I think you're going in the wrong direction there. I think that's a hiding to nothing. That's the people that will never ever make it in life, and they'll always wonder, how on earth was it no possible for me? How have I not got that? How do I not have what they've got? Well, I tell you what, go and ask them,
Mm-hmm.
but be prepared for the answer.
Yeah, you might not
Be
like that.
humble enough to take it on the chin.
Yeah.
It reminds me, it definitely reminds me of Keith Cunningham,
Mm-hmm.
just sitting in Paris and him telling me and giving it to me big style about how, it's like, this is, you've got to compromise, and you've got to be able to work with people, and you've got to create a win-win situation, Jim. This is the competitive thing. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not all about you and everybody else loses out as a natural result of it. It's about you winning, but other people winning with you as well. That's humility.
Yeah.
To take that on the chin. I went away licking my wounds and for a week or so in Bampot.
But then after a
I was a
time,
bit more. I was a bit more severe in my cursing with that, actually, but I don't want to do it on here. But it's like I was really licking my wounds after that workshop with Keith
do
Cunningham.
you think that's what you needed though?
Oh, I knew that. That's why I go to. That's why I go to
Yeah.
these things, because Keith Cunningham is Rich Dad. Keith Cunningham is Rich Dad in the Rich Dad Poor Dad book by Kiyosaki.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
if he's Rich Dad, it's like, I'm not going to say you're wrong, Keith, but Keith's got a real good way of delivering things. He says, "Hey, it's just my opinion. If you don't want to listen to it and you don't want to take it on board, makes no difference to me." Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I was just going to say because obviously we do one-to-ones and things, obviously for work and things, and you say things sometimes to me, and I'm like, it's a bit hard to swallow, but hey, it's you're saying it for a reason, and I know that, and then and it's not until after a wee bit of time you think, right, okay, I get that now, and I appreciate where that comes from and why you're.
But this is where some people fall out, because for example, they'll leave. They'll
Mhm.
leave us as a company, or they'll not want to communicate with me
Take
anymore,
it
or
wrong
anything
way.
like that, because they don't have the humility enough to take it on the chin and actually
Mhm.
realize that's what they really like.
Yeah,
That means they don't want to learn. They think they've arrived in their head. They think they've got nothing else to learn. I've got nothing else to learn. I've
I don't need to
arrived.
change. I
It's
don't need
like,
to
I don't need
change.
to listen to you anymore. I can just go off and sit on my beach or whatever it is. It's like, well, you'll not be sitting on a beach, or you'll be paying a lot of money for it, and you'll have to keep doing it, and you'll never be able to. You'll have to keep working to get to sit on that beach.
Mhm.
Whereas I maybe don't need to work to ever sit on that beach ever again, if that because it comes in regardless. But that's what humility is. And
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of people lately actually don't have that humility. They just can't take it. They
yeah.
can't take the advice. And I basically, my mentors were like that with me. They were like, and I knew if I wanted to make it and I wanted to be successful in anything, I knew I had to take that. I mean, especially one of the books I read, and actually, I'll read it and read it and read it now and again, is How to Win Friends and Influence People, by Dale Carnegie. That's a fantastic book. I mean, that's basically the Bible of people skills. How to win friends and influence people. Yeah, there you go. And we've read that already, but I need
Yeah.
to read it again and again and again, because sometimes I forget. Sometimes I forget, and I'm not really. Well, am I? No, because a lot of people still. No, it's maybe the other person. The
Yeah.
humility comes in the fact that I always look at myself and think, I've got a lot to learn still, and I've still not got that skill. Whereas other people go, flipping heck, you have.
Hmm.
But I don't see that, because probably the virtue of humility that you talk about.
Yeah. I've put it in my notes, and and it's quite a good example. It's like somewhere between like narcissism and shame is where probably
Yeah.
humility fits, and it creates that necessary space to really self-reflect and provide that honest assessment of your strengths and your weaknesses, and really, if you could accept that, it has a really positive effect on you.
Mhm.
And that's obviously been part of a student of life and
Yeah,
recognizing your
because
mistakes.
in the past, I've been accused of being pretty
Harsh.
brash. Yeah, brash and harsh.
Yeah.
Um, but it's for a reason, because I have to
Yeah.
deliver the message. And sometimes with customers, it's like, there's no better way of telling you this. It's like, here's what you've got to do.
And you notice the difference when you do that, and somebody's like, right, okay, and they take it on board and think, right, okay, or somebody will jump to defense or get their defenses up, and you notice that's how the difference in their attitude
This is
Um,
probably where How to Win Friends and Influence People is a good way to actually break the
yeah,
news. So when you break news to somebody and it's not going to be the most successful, the best news they'll ever heard, and you want to deliver it in the right way, but you don't want to upset them or offend them, then it's an easy way to say to anybody out there, it's like, I've got something I need really to tell you. Do you want me to sugarcoat it and go around the houses to tell you, or do you want me to give you it do you want me to give you it straight? Now, you'll get permission from most people, and they'll say, look, just give me it straight, give me it on the chin.
mhm,
So they're ready for that, to receive that information. So that's a real skillful way of delivering a message, whereas I sometimes just forget to do that and cut to the chase.
yeah,
and I'm a black or white person. It's like there's no in between or grey in the middle, that sort of thing. So I just deliver it. And people that get me are still here working with me, like yourself, obviously, Richard.
yeah,
People that just don't understand that and have not become a student of life are no longer here. But
mhm,
if I look back on these people, and I do now and again, they're no further forward in life than they ever were before. They're
yeah,
still broke at a different level. They're still not any further forward in their ambition about what they wanted. And I knew what their ambitions were because I used to discuss it with them all.
yeah,
But some have actually broken through and some have actually gone on to meteoric success. But that's the very few people, 5%, dare I say,
yeah.
are prepared to take it on the chin, prepared to be humble about what they're receiving and the information they're receiving, and they know it's for a good reason.
Yeah. So I put together 4 ways to really kind of lead our discussion today, and it's about how to really develop humility and things. And
Yeah.
you kind of covered that first one there as you were talking, and it's accepting feedback.
Yep, this is a good thing. Just before we go on to that, actually,
Okay.
you've written down here high quality apologies
Oh
are
yeah, yeah,
effective in repairing relationships. It's like I'm not really sure if I'm really good at that. But it's yeah, I need to remember that more and more and more. But again, that's down to
yeah,
How to Win Friends and Influence People with Dale Carnegie. That's
yeah,
where that comes from. So let's talk about accepting feedback then.
yeah. Because like we say there, and you touched on it already about feedback, but humility and things is developed by being really open to accepting feedback, and that you really seek to understand and learn from that feedback that others are giving you.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because you know somebody that's not like that when they immediately jump on you like a ton of bricks.
Hmm.
You get that often when people come onto social media and ask for your opinion or
Yeah,
people's opinions on they ask a question, ask an opinion, and then you say your opinion, and then they jump on you like a ton of bricks. And it's like, well, if you didn't want that opinion,
why
then
did you
don't
ask? Yeah,
ask. Don't ask in the first place then if you're not prepared to receive the response. All they're doing is looking for opinions which will justify what their opinion is already. So they're asking the question to find people that will just reinforce what they expect. Whereas when I go in and ask people's opinions, it's like I look for a dissenting voice
hmm,
because the dissenting voice is really the person I want because the dissenting voice will tell me whether what I'm thinking is the right opinion or not. And the dissenting voice, and I don't mean the dissenting voice has to be a personal attack. What I mean, it has to have facts and back it up. It can't be just, this is my verbal diarrhea that I'm about to spew out because I just feel I'm wanting to say that because I'm just going to have a go at you. That's
yeah,
not an opinion. That's an attack.
yeah. That's a reactive thing, and
So
I think
feedback's
that,
quite important.
yeah,
Classic example, somebody messaged us said, "Oh, I've been trying to get in touch with you for days and we've been trying to view a property." And it's like, and then I wrote back to them and I said, "So what email address have you been trying and what number have you been
I've
trying?"
seen that at the weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
crickets. Nothing.
because
No
I had wrote
response.
that as well, and
Yeah, because
tried.
look, I'll bet you a pound to a penny. They've probably been trying to email us this morning on a Sunday. And they've probably been trying to phone the number in the office on a Sunday,
On the
and they've
Sunday.
probably
Yeah.
phoned and emailed umpteen times in that 2 or 3 hours. And it's like, what do you work on a Sunday? No, you don't work on a Sunday.
And
The
that's why,
person that's trying to
and
email is no
I've
working on
done
a Sunday
too.
either. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? So it's like, why have I not got a response in the next 5 minutes? And it's a weekend and nobody's working. Why have I not got a response yet? It's like, I know why you've not got a response, but you've got a response now because you've messaged us through social media. So you've got a response that you'll get from No one else, by the way.
You're not
So
getting another
to follow that
contact
up, I sent it on to
anymore.
Sophie, because Sophie covers. It's her turn to cover. So I sent it on to Sophie and I said, Sophie, ask them at the same time what number are they phoning and what email address and when are they doing it. Because even though we know possibly there's nothing wrong, it's just the fact that they're impatient, we still need to understand if anything's going wrong. That's all.
Yeah.
Now,
because if there's something wrong with our system, then we want to look at it. Yeah.
and that's humility. That's accepting the very fact that you might be wrong. So just make sure and check and be humble enough to be open to that feedback so you can understand and learn from other people. Again, I've had it before where I phone people up and says, I noticed you were trying to get in touch with us, so what's the problem and all the rest of it? And they were talking about a number they were trying to get in touch with, and the next minute it was another estate agent. And yet they're
Yeah.
castigating us on social media.
Yeah,
It's like they're not getting back to me and all the rest of it. And then I'll private message you, give me your number and I'll phone you. Phoning you, it's like, oh, all right, no, you've not got that property. It's someone else. It's like, God,
I get that.
do you mind taking these comments off of social media then? Because you've just castigated us for no reason at all. And then it's like, and then they leave them. I'm like, what? But we've no. And then that's when I write in the comments. Hi, after our conversation, obviously you've said to me that this has nothing to do with us and it's not. But that's the same with Google reviews sometimes. You get the people, it's like, then you look up and you find out and you investigate and all the rest, and it's like, wait a minute, you're not even a tenant of ours. It's like, or you've not even inquired about property ours. You've just made this up.
Yeah, it's crazy sometimes what comes through. And then that's, I think, where it's important with the feedback thing is listening. And really, like you say, instead of jumping in and biting back at something that somebody's giving you feedback, is to really carefully listen to what they're saying to you.
Well, we've got a mutual friend, Richard, that had a huge business in pubs, who maybe just couldn't take that and wouldn't listen to feedback at all. Because I used to try and help out, and it was like, "What do you mean?" It's like I'm only just trying to tell you. I'm only just feeding it back. Whether you do anything with this or no, it's not going to make any difference to me. But I just thought you'd want to know. That's all. It's like, it's like, I didn't bother then. I'll not say anything, and therefore they're no longer here.
It's so important to listen, even if you're not, or even if you don't agree with what you're hearing in the feedback. Still listen and take time and process it and think why you're hearing that, and then it'll go a long, long way rather than jumping in and being quite reactive. Yeah.
But then you've got to realise as well, there's some people that just want to see the world burn.
Well, that's true, yeah.
And if you can identify these people at the end of the conversations and just write it up to, some people just want to see the world burn, or something else has upset them in their life, and therefore they've got to take it out on someone else to make themselves feel better. That's another way. It could often happen. So you've got to be you've got to be able to accept these sort of these knocks that you're going to get, but it's not a personal thing to you. You just have to accept the fact that that's how some people are sometimes, and while they'll not move on, you will, because you're humble enough to actually be able to accept that information and then process it and decide whether you should act on it at all or not. This is where it comes down to you talk about ask for help as the next one, about 4 ways to develop humility. The first one was obviously accepting feedback, but then you talk about asking for help. It's like, I always ask for help. It makes no difference to me at all. I've always learned that in the very beginning, and I've always learned by the books I've read, and the people that are far more successful than me, that's what they did as well.
Yeah.
Every single time, lots of them ask for help. Do you actually think Musk asks for help? Of course he does. Do you think Bezos and Branson and Sugar and all these different people ask for help? Of course they do. That's how they get where they get, because they ask for help.
Yeah, you'll never be successful unless you've got people around you who are helping you, or there's certain things you won't be able to do unless somebody shows you how to do it. And some people see asking for help, they view it as a bit of a weakness as well, which is silly. And
especially with the competitive world we have, and the way we are actually brought up, and the teachings we are given in school about to compete against each other, and all the the local football, the kids' football on a Saturday and stuff like that. It's that sort of mentality is drummed into you possibly from the parents and how
Yeah.
they've been brought up. That this is a lot to do with it. I mean, there's no doubt about it. My grandfather, was a hard taskmaster on my mum, definitely, and I realised that's why my mum was like that with me as well. Whereas my dad's dad was a bit more draconian in terms of what he was doing. So he was quite strict as well overall. But my dad never really asked for advice off of anybody, and he was quite introvert in terms of what he was doing. So no surprise, you get like the people you associate with.
Yeah.
So guess what happened to me? Became quite introvert, and I don't really. I found it difficult to ask for help from other people because it's like you're not meant to ask for help from other people because that's the sign of weakness. Yeah, it's a sign
Yeah.
of strength.
Yeah, it is. And achievers often do find it quite hard to ask for help. And then they are probably then more likely to kind of rely on their own abilities to try and maybe problem solve or troubleshoot something rather than admit that they need the help. And then as a result, they often find themselves overwhelmed, spread too thin, and that kind of because
This
they
is
never
why
ask for
most
help.
this is why most self-employed people go to business.
Yeah, try and do it all on their
Because
own.
yeah, and they don't want to ask for help because they don't want to admit to anybody else they're failing
Hmm.
in their eyes. That's why.
Yeah,
That's why people open shops and people open businesses and people that buy, they get their vans and they open gymnasiums and stuff like that. That's why they'll go on and do all these things as their own self. And everybody sees all the glitz and glamour and the bling, but they don't understand what's happening behind the scenes and the
yeah,
finance and the budgeting and the constant effort that goes in to try and generate sales. And everybody thinks they're successful because they see them on, a lot of actors as well on television and films and stuff like that. But yeah, when they look at these people, look at people in Coronation Street, right?
hmm,
People in Coronation Street have just got a job,
yeah,
and yet people hold them up as celebrities, but they've just got a job. They're there to do an acting job. They don't make a lot of money. Trust me, they don't.
hmm.
And they have to do shop openings and gala openings and stuff like that to make ends meet.
Appearances and things. Yeah,
Yeah. And yet everybody people, our society, well, a definition of a poor man of a celebrity is somebody like that, really. Because a poor man's celebrity is, Coronation Street, Emmerdale,
TV
EastEnders,
types. Yeah,
stuff like that. They're just like you and I. They've just
that they're
got a
in the
job as
telly.
being an actor. It just so happens they're in quite a successful series. If they disappear from that series, the series will go on. So it's really the series that's carrying them. It's not them.
Hmm.
Yet we hold them up to be some sort of celebrity status and put them on a pedestal as if this is something that people should aspire to. No. And then we wonder in the
Quite
papers
interesting
the
when you put
next
it like
minute
that.
they're up for charges for criminal charges for something, or
Yeah,
they're divorced, or they've something's happened in their life, and everybody goes, I couldn't
yeah,
believe that.
they get absolutely castigated for it. Yeah.
As if they're somebody different from
Hmm.
from us, and it's like they've just got a job as being an actor on a successful television show or in a film, and they don't ask that. A lot of people don't ask for help because of that, because of the way they're portrayed in the media, and that's where it all goes wrong. They've not got the humility to ask for help. They don't
Yeah.
realize what's going on. They've not got humility to ask for people to get involved with what they're doing. Whereas I'm like, how can I get this delegated to somebody as quick as
Hmm.
possible? That's
Yeah.
what I've started to learn. I need somebody to delegate this to straight away, because it's like I can't do this all myself. No man is an island, is the expression. You need to have other people on your side. You need to have other people in your team. And if you watch the Kevin Hart, the Mark Twain Awards, it's just on Netflix just now. But it shows you straight away how successful he's become and the team of people he's had round about him in order to be successful. But how all the other comedians round about him that are successful have helped him elevate him up as well. And he, as a result, has helped them elevate themselves as well.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say as well. Although people may find it difficult to ask help and things, a lot of people probably won't appreciate how much there is people out there that are really willing to help people and help you along the way. But you need to
But it
ask for it
goes
first.
again. It goes back to having the right people.
Hmm.
It's not just anybody that's got a pulse. It's the right people that will help you get to get to the destination where you need to get to just now, and then we'll work out the next destination from there. Remember, it's a journey. It's not a
Yeah,
destination. But I say destination because it's like climbing a mountain. You'll get to certain parts and stages. I mean, look at Everest as a classic of the climbing mountain and stages. It's 2 months to climb Everest. Most of that time is acclimatization.
Getting used to
It's
the change.
not the fact that it takes 2 months to get up that hill, because most people can get up Everest in probably about a day or 2 days. But there's no way your body can acclimatize to that climate overnight. So you have to go up to one camp, come down to the next, go up and come down and go up and come down to get your body to acclimatize to that pressure on your overall system, and actually get the oxygen into your blood in order to fuel your body to be able to keep going, so you don't freak out or don't have an embolism or anything. And then you get up to the next stage. So you're up and down, up and down, up and down to climatize yourself to that system, to that environment. And that's what it's like working with other teams. You're working with other people, and you're helping each other get to these different plateaus. And some people will not go any further because that's the plateau that they're at, and they're only with you for a certain part of that journey.
Yeah.
That's when the rocket takes off from the ground. It's got a number of tanks on it, to help it get to a certain level, and then the tanks fall off and fall back to Earth. That's just like some of the people round about you. They're only there to get you at that certain level, and they fall back to Earth, or they stay where they are. And then you go up with the next team of people to get you up even higher, into whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And that's not because you're using people to get up there. They don't want to come on that next step of that journey with you. That's what you have to realize. They just don't want to be on that next step of the journey, or they've chosen by their actions not to be on that next step of that journey.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Jim. And the rocket thing is quite a good example with obviously the boosters that are on there to begin with to get it to where it needs to go, and then it goes further on its without them. But that's obviously asking for help and how other people can help you in your journey. But this is quite an interesting one we're going to talk about next, and it's admitting when you're wrong.
Ooh,
and I like that. Well, it's quite funny, and I've done it myself. And admitting when you're wrong, it's as soon as you know you've made a mistake or you realise you have, it's quite easy to jump right on the defensive and try and be on the defensive because you know you've made the mistake, rather than accepting, right, okay, I've done that, and I've done it myself in the past, and I'm sure everybody has.
The one that you see on there is when you watch The Apprentice, not the one in this country, but the one in America. When you used to watch The Apprentice, you used to have them throw each other under the bus all the time. Sometimes in this country, in the UK, they throw each other under the bus as well. And technically, these are the people that are the narcissists. They'll not admit they're wrong, but they'll actually deflect it to someone else. I think that's the gaslight others. I think that's what that is. They're basically putting the blame on others and actually pretending it's their fault, when in actual fact it's no their fault at all, and they're trying to make it up at them. And as I said, it's a tactic, as you've said. It's commonly employed by narcissists. Their own self-worth, and they're in their own world, their own dream world about how great they are, and they have no idea that they'll get any further forward. This is classic example of, I would say, a narcissist.
Yeah.
Is when you see it in an employer's environment. Let's take it in a business. When you see it in a business, how come you're getting all that money for selling that product to that customer, and I'm only getting this in my pay packet? Why am I not getting all that? Because I'm doing all the work to generate that. All right. So the people in accounts and the quotation system and the systems and the social media channels and the for sale board, all the people that do all the work. And I'm not talking about, I've never really had this in my business, but I've seen it in other business entities that I've actually run and in the past. And that's what it is. Why are you getting all that? And it's like, well, wait a minute, but you have to realize there's a team of people that actually generate this, and the van that you're driving is paid for by us, and the telephone you've got is paid by us, and the utility bills are paid by us, and the rates of the office you're in is paid by us, and the rent is paid by us, and the everything that you're doing is paid by us. And record companies are a classic example, isn't it? What happened to what do you call it? Terence Trent D'Arby. Terence Trent D'Arby was the second coming, the next prince. for his, would you let me stay and all the rest of it, and fantastic in the 80s, Terence Trent D'Arby, and then all of a sudden it's like, I want to make my own album. What do you lot know about making music? Wait a minute, Terence. You were successful with your album the last time because other people wrote it for you and you sang it. What on earth are you trying to do here? And it all went. I've watched a documentary about it in the past, and it'll maybe be somewhere in the ether. But I like to watch these things and learn by other people's mistakes, because it's like, it's mistakes I do not want to make, and it's realizing actually it's not all about you. You're not the center of the universe. And what my mentors used to say before to me when I started to get on that track about 35 years ago, it says, Jim, I tell you what you do. Take a glass of water. I've just got a cup there now. So fill up that glass of water. Put your finger in the middle, right?
Right.
And then take it back out.
I'll hold this up and do it, right? Okay.
Does it leave a space when you take it out?
No.
That's exactly how much people will miss you once you're gone.
That's the good way to put it.
It'll still roll on, the caravan. And you could bark all you want, but the caravan will still roll on, and it'll still go to meteoric success. Because the people that have been here in the past, over the last 20 years since I've been in a state agency, the people that have been women in the very beginning, they're no longer here. And yeah, they've gone on to do different things, but I've still rolled on and I've still succeeded in what I'm doing. And they could have been part of that journey. They could have shared in that success, but they chose not to do that. Because they didn't have the belief. They didn't have the faith. They weren't prepared to admit when they were wrong. They just take the toys out the pram, throw the toys out the pram, hissy fit, and that's me done. I'm quitting. Go on.
When it comes to admitting when you're wrong, and a lot of people do have this, like they have the blinkers on, that they can't. It's like they can't accept the fact that they've maybe made the mistake, and they just kind of completely like just brush over it, and then try and deflect it to somebody else to take the blame.
Yeah, definitely. It's when you say one thing and then you do an exact other. There's a great phrase for this. It's what you do. Shout so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Again, another one I used to get from my mentors all the time. Jim, because I used to get it told to me all the time. Jim, what you do, shout so loudly, or what I'm not doing, shout so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying, because I'm definitely trying. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. It's like, if I look at your diary, I can't see anything. So you can't sit there and tell me you're putting all this effort in. That's what they used to say to me. You can't sit, Jim, you can't sit there and tell me you're putting all this effort in to build this business that you want to build if your diary is absolutely empty when I look at it. You maybe think about it a lot. You maybe got it going round in your head all the time. But the reality is, according to your diary, you're not doing anything. And I went, okay, I accept that. They used to say to me things like, if it was Amway I was involved in originally, and this is where I learned from my mentors, but it's like, if the Amway police came in and checked your diary to see if you actually worked as an Amway distributor, would you be able to prove you actually were an Amway distributor? And it was like, questionable.
Yeah.
And it just showed you it's because I wasn't doing it. But it's being able to receive that information and be humble enough to do that, and have the humility to actually say, yeah, okay, you're absolutely right. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing. Right, what I need to do. And it was great because they had fantastic tolerance for me. The very fact is, and I've seen it in other people before as well, who I've worked with, who've actually just talked lies. They're just giving it blatant lies. You'll have seen that as well, Richard. You're just like, wait a minute, I know exactly what's going on, and you're just lying to me.
And it's like taking on new members of a team and things is a really good example of, and it's when you speak to them about, like, look, it's going to take a while. You'll need to pick up how to learn things, and no question is a silly question. And if you need to ask something more than once or several times, I'd rather you did than try and do it wrong. Because that could be definitely. And I think it's important as well. You need to remember, everybody needs to remember that obviously nobody's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We'll all continue to do that. And just being able to admit when you're wrong is really a sign of your own courage and integrity and your own development, and really that elevates you, not just in yourself but in other people's eyes as well.
I see it in the fear of people when they, well, for example, over the years when they've started with us, not being able to admit it, they're wrong,
Hmm.
actually hiding the truth about
Yeah,
maybe a mistake they've made.
when
And
it
I've
shouldn't.
seen it. I've seen it over the years, not just our business, but all the businesses I've worked with in the past, the
Yeah,
manufacturing companies as well. And they've not been, for want of a better phrase, man enough to admit it and own
yeah,
up and just take it on the chin, because they've had this innate fear that they're going to be castigated or sacked for it. And it's like, my God, it's the other way round. It's the
hmm,
fact that you're not prepared to admit to a mistake that you've made,
makes it work.
and we know you've made that mistake. That tells me straight away that if this happens again, we're in trouble,
Yeah,
because it might be even bigger or worse than this small mistake you're making, and you hide it and never tell us, and then it'll come back home to roost us, and that's what you don't want. This is the great lesson I learned from Sandy Dowie when I worked in
mhm,
Balfours as a trainee accountant. I used
yeah,
to go to Sandy all the time, and I used to learn from him all the time, and George Barber as well. Sadly, the two are no longer here. But they were great mentors as well over the
hmm,
years. And I was able to go to them, no bother. And sometimes I was like, oh my God, they might, if they know I don't know that. And I never really thought twice about it, because I got used to going to them and just saying to them all the time, right, okay, what do I do next here? Because I'm not really sure. What do I do next there? Now, most people would interpret that as, oh, you're no good at your job, so I may as
your
well get rid of you.
incompetence. Yeah,
Yeah, you're incompetent. It's like, no, I'm learning.
hmm,
And
definitely.
and the great thing is, once you've learned that, when people come to me and say that, and I do have a lot of people like yourself that come to me and say that, and it's like, now you've learned that, I don't need to tell you ever again. Then
Yeah,
it's brilliant, because now I know, now a trust is developed.
hmm,
That's a trust, and that's the humility of being able to admit when you're wrong in certain situations, and being able to go to another person and say, look, I was wrong with that. I'm not really sure what to do here. Can you help me with it? And people will fall over themselves to help other people, because they see it as a sign of, I'm wanted, I'm needed,
yeah,
and they feel good about themselves at the fact that somebody's asking them for help. That's what a lot of people don't realize. The other person feels really good about the fact that someone's asking for their help. They don't feel that there's something wrong with that other person. Whereas the insecure person usually actually thinks like that. I better not tell anybody in case. I better not
yeah.
admit I'm wrong in case I get into trouble. Nothing like that at all.
And that really brings us on nicely to what we're going to round up speaking about today, and that's recognizing others and the people around you. And like you say, Jim, success and things is not achieved in a silo and someday on their own. Do you know, you need to consider like there's
Yeah.
numerous people around you that are going to help you, or people that you may have helped along the way, um, and that you would never have achieved your goals or your aspirations without the people's, whether their grace and guidance of, whether it's family, whether it's mentors, teachers, co-workers, like you were saying there, Jim, all these people that have helped you along the way or can help you along the way, as long as you obviously ask for help, accept their feedback, and admit when you're wrong, and use that as part of your development.
Great. I mean, there's a guy called Colin. It basically bullied me out of Tillis Russell,
Hmm.
who was my former boss. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
I can go back and shake his hand, because I think to myself, Christ almighty, if you hadn't bullied me out the door at Tillis Russell, I'd never be where I am today.
Hmm.
It's, I if all these people hadn't done these certain things, even negative or positive, I would never be where I am today. So I've got to thank Colin for that, and I didn't think I'll ever see him for that reason. But I tell you what, at some point in time, you never know, I might bump into him.
Well,
I
you know,
might get
Jim,
in
that's
touch with him.
interesting. That's interesting because it's not always going to be a positive thing, maybe that has an influence on you. Like you say, that was maybe a bit a negative thing. But when you
Mhm.
think about how it contributed and altered the trajectory of your life and your journey, if that had never happened, would you have ever been where you are now, or in this, and
No,
went
I
in that
could
direction?
honestly, I could have stayed, because I remember Chris phoning me up, the financial director, phoning me up and said, "Look, Jim, I want you to stay." He
Mhm.
was good. He had see. This is another thing. Chris was, on his hospital bed getting his knee done because he loved his rugby and he was getting his knee done. But he phoned me up when I handed my notice in, and I remember Chris saying to me, "Look, Jim, we'll work it out. We'll get you to stay." And I says, "Well, all these things that you heard from him was a complete and utter lie. When he said I wasn't in at work on time, and you were looking at the timesheet saying that I wasn't at work, I was up at the coating division." I was getting all the information from the coating division, so I didn't have to clock in at work and then go all the way up there and then come back down. And just to keep your timesheet right, I actually drove straight up to the coating division to get all the timesheets, take a photocopy of them. Then I came down and clocked in.
Yeah.
And he knew that, but he used it. He used it against me and basically poisoned Chris against me at the time for that reason, because he knew I was because this was the one that Chris used to come to us and say, me and Dave Alexander, the councillor Dave Alexander, we were the cost accountants, the section leaders. And when Chris used to come to us and say, "Can you get this done?" Well, he used to go to Colin and say, "Can you be able to do this?" And Colin went, "Nah, I didn't think that was possible." But then he would come in to see us and say, "Do you think this is possible, guys?" "I no bother, we'll do that." And then we would do it.
Yeah.
It's like, and unfortunately, Colin would look a fool. And it's like, well, what we meant to do? "Oh, sorry, we can't do it because Colin says we can't do it." No, we can't do it because we don't understand the system and we understand how to do weekly accounting. So if you want us to do weekly or monthly accounting, we can do that, no bother. And so you understand your cash flows and your KPIs quicker, and you can keep an eye on the ball. So this is the thing about recognizing the journey you've taken, but it's also recognizing the fact that the contributions, even the negative things, have actually made to your life in order to get you where you are.
Yeah, because you could always take something negative and turn it into a positive. You just need to think about it the right way.
Look at
Why
the teachers. None of the teachers inspired me at school. It's like they weren't exactly mentors at all. None of the teachers were. They were basically, but I wasn't the model pupil at school either. So I'm not surprised that they did that. So there's people that say that, "Oh, these teachers were they were a total bampot to me." But then I was off the rails. I was off the rails about what
I have to
happened.
say there were a few teachers that I would always remember for school that I think really were their intentions and their guidance for not just myself and other people, I think was really, really good, and things that I always think about, I think back to that they taught us and helped us, and I think that's quite good. I had a lot of good teachers, to be honest.
I remember specifically different phrases that some of them would come out with. For example, the classic is, when I was terrified at walking out on stage for the first time ever and saying, "Books you ordered from the bookseller, sir." Well, I handed them over to this guy in the play Oliver. And I said, "What happens if I fluff my line?" And I tell you this story all the time. And Mr. Hughes went, "It doesn't matter because no one knows what you're about to say next anyway. So it doesn't matter if you fluff your line. Just hand over the books and keep quiet and walk back up the stage."
Yeah, because I mean, we do this show, and I mean, I had lots of notes and things for us to follow. I mean, we don't do it word for word, but you always say to me, you don't need to read your whole script, just use it as, because we're just having a conversation. That's what this is. But we do need pointers, obviously, on what we're talking about.
So I will take time to thank everybody. Over the years and their contributions in the trajectory, they've led me to where I am right now. And recognizing others, people who have actually helped you achieve meteoric success. I mean, my mentors, definitely. I mean, if it wasn't for them and the 5 years I did with network marketing and what they had taught me over that 5 years of all the failure and the rejection I took over that 5-year period, and they taught me that's normal to do that because you're closer to a yes every single time, and taught me, all the books that they gave me to read, like How to Win Friends and Influence People, Magic of Thinking Big, See at the Top, Zig Ziglar, Secret of Success, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. All these books that they told me to read and got me to read actually rewired my brain for success. So if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think kind of to summarize what we went through today is that life is really full of kind of like endless opportunities that could help you become the better version of yourself, as long as you apply yourself right and have the right people around you. And then we've spoke a lot about humility today, and obviously cultivating a virtue of humility could really help you become that student of life and help you capitalize on all those opportunities and ultimately lead and help you in your journey to success.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And as you say, Jim, a big thank you to all those people along the way that maybe I've helped you in a positive or a negative way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And the team that I've got around about me, including yourself, Richard,
yeah,
you know, when we first started out, and you joined around about 2010 or thereabouts,
yeah,
and you were working with the other team before, when we had Century 21,
yeah,
there was no doubt about it. I mean, you know, if you hadn't helped me in the beginning, that's why you have part ownership of the company now, and I
yeah,
gave you that as a result of it. But if you
yeah,
hadn't helped me in the beginning, I don't think I would have continued to be able to go on because I didn't have the money.
yeah.
And you did that for free in the very beginning, for a
Mhm.
year or something, and all I did was pay for your driving lessons to get you
Yeah,
past your
and
test.
I was still at college doing my terms at college and finishing that off.
But if it
So
wasn't for that system as well, the enterprise system, which allowed you to be paid a nominal amount just to keep you going as well, then that would never have happened. And what they did. So, you know, I think it would have been a different story about where we are right now if it wasn't for that.
yeah, definitely, definitely, it was all part of the journey.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much. That was a great insight. Actually went
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
better than what I thought, becoming a student of life.
yeah. No, that was really good. I thanks for your insights. Thanks for everybody for watching. If you're watching on the reruns, feel free to put questions in, and we'll come back. And you'll get us next week at 12:30 again as usual for the Wealth Creation Show.